Welcome everybody to today's webinar. Thank you for joining us. My name is Kira Duggan and I'm the Research Director of Systems and Services here at aifs. I would like to start by acknowledging the Wurundjeri, Woiwurrung and Boonwurrung people of the Kulin Nations, who are the traditional owners of the lands in Melbourne, where I am speaking to you from. I also pay my respects to the traditional owners of country throughout Australia and recognise their continuing connection to lands and waters. We pay our respects to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander cultures, to elders past, present and emerging, and of course extend that deepest respect to our First Nations guests joining us at our webinar today. So before we dive into our discussion, I just have a few housekeeping things to cover with you. Firstly, thank you to everyone who, as part of your registration, submitted your questions in the areas that you were keen to hear more about. We've used all of those responses to help kind of build our discussion. And our esteemed guests have got lots of amazing things to talk to you about in response to the things that you've provided to us. There won't be a Q&A at the end because we don't believe we will have time. We think there is plenty here to run through with our guests. However, please still in the course of the webinar send through your questions and we can take a few and respond to them later after the live broadcast. The webinar is recorded. It's available for you for your re-listening pleasure in about 2 weeks from now. It will be available through the aifs news channels if you're a subscriber to our updates, and also on our website under the webinars section. Also provided to you as part of this webinar will be some related readings and resources which our guests have put together for you and are a collection of some of the I guess most useful and relevant resources to support some of the things that we're going to be talking about this afternoon. You can find them in the handout section of your GoToWebinar control panel. And of course, not an exhaustive list of resources, but just a few things that our guests think would be useful for you to take a look at. At the end of the webinar, there'll be a short feedback survey, so very grateful if you could spend a few minutes just providing that back to us. And that's all the housekeeping, so we're going to dive in. So this webinar will explore how organisations can build more culturally safe workplaces with Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander staff. Greater cultural safety in non-Indigenous workplaces paves the way not only for better service delivery, but also contributes to better health and social outcomes, and also moves us all forward as people in terms of our mindsets, attitudes, behaviours, and even the language that we use. So the aim of the webinar is to help you to develop a better understanding of cultural safety and gain insights into how you can build cultural safety in your workplace, both at the organisational and individual interpersonal level. I am also here to learn today. Like many of the organisations that you work for, aifs is on a journey of learning how to become more culturally safe as a workplace. And this journey has no final destination. It is something that we continue to strive to get better at and strive to learn more about as we evolve as both organisations and individuals. So very, very delighted to be welcoming you to our 3 panellists today. Their full bios can be found in the handout section of the GoToWebinar dashboard. But without further ado, it gives me great pleasure to introduce you to Eddie Moore, Lee Brown and Sarah DeCrea. Lee Brown is a proud Wiradjuri woman living on Dja Dja Wurrung country. She is the statewide coordinator for the innovative project Strengthening Cultural Safety in the Orange Door. Sarah DeCrea is a proud Torres Strait Islander woman living and working on Kaurna country. She's the Executive Manager of Children's Services at Relationships Australia in South Australia. And before her current role, she was the practice leader of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Family Services, where in this role she provided cultural information and guidance to staff. Eddie Moore is the Managing Director of Nukuwarra Consulting. He's a proud Wemba Wemba, Watchabalak and Palawa man with extensive experience working in Aboriginal community-controlled health organisations. and collaborating with non-Indigenous organisations to help them build their cultural capability and cultural safety. Thank you all three for being part of our panel today. So I'm going to start with a question about the organisational level. So we know that cultural safety is something that needs to occur at many levels, organisational and individual. But if we think about the workplaces that we are part of, what does it mean for an organisation to be culturally safe? What does this look like? And Lee, I'm going to throw to you first, please.
Yeah, thanks, Kira. And I think first, when we're looking at what is cultural safety in workplaces, we need to know sort of a definition, like what is cultural safety? So I'm going to read, this is created by Professor Gregory Phillips. It's been adopted into many Victorian Aboriginal frameworks and action plans. And this definition is that cultural safety means creating environments where people feel safe, where there's no denial of or challenge to their identity, and where their needs can be met. It's about shared respect, shared meaning, shared knowledge, and experience of learning, living and working together with dignity and truly listening. So cultural safety is about creating and maintaining an environment where all people are treated in a culturally respectful manner. So with this and looking at how we embed this into organisations, we need to look at not only training, but we also need to look at governance systems, operations, absolutely all aspects of an organisation. From policies, codes of conduct, we need to be looking at how we embed mechanisms or in statements towards cultural safety and Aboriginal self-determination within everything from strategic plans, partnership agreements, within everything that we do. So when we're doing that, you know, we really are taking it from that top level all the way down. And I'm thinking we also need to look at what can we put in position descriptions to not only encourage Aboriginal people to apply, but to commit to cultural safety from applying for the job through a position description and committing to that and having it as every part of our daily conversations. I think this is where that normalising of those conversations is important. I think also we've had a lot of questions around how do we increase Aboriginal employment in different organisations, and I think so much of it comes down to our position descriptions, doesn't it? You know, like we've all been there where we've read a position description and go, I'm not quite sure what that job's about. You know, how can we actually give a good highlight of what the job's about? Keep key selection criteria sensible. Keep questions in interviews, you know, sensible and straightforward. And what I always do, and this is something that we are trialling in our organisation, is to actually give interviewees the opportunity to see the interview questions 15 minutes, 20 minutes prior to the interview. So they've got a copy there in front of them because so many of us might learn in different ways. So I think encouraging Aboriginal people to apply for jobs and creating an environment where they feel like they're able to really give everything they possibly can to an interview process to show you who they are is so important. So I think, like Sarah, you've got some great ideas that you're working with over in Adelaide. I'd love to hear more about them.
So for the organisation that I work with, Relationships Australia, we have had what we call the Relationships Australia Indigenous Network for a long time. So I think it's been at least 15 years of running. So I'd like to start by, it's important for us as a people to acknowledge those that have come before us. And it's actually a responsibility for us to learn and guide those that will come after us. And the women that came before me, Joanne Wilmot, Angela Ryder, Mary Pekin, from different states and territories, that really put the challenge down to Relationships Australia as a federation, and each state and territory as the organisations around the idea of cultural fitness. Because cultural safety is the noun, fitness is the noun, but what they wanted to change it from was from actually, it's not a naming, it's a doing. And so cultural fitness means that you have to do the exercise. You actually have to get out and work those muscles. It is a doing. You can't just name it, you have to do it. You have to walk along and really do cultural fitness. So our idea of cultural fitness is to actually think about, you know, because safety is like the outcome. It's the, you know, and even safety, then you still have to keep working on safety. So for us, it's the cultural awareness, the input, the people that you need to, whoever's working in this space or working with the people that you work for and with. What is your input? What do you do to build your knowledge and skill set? So that's something that's a responsibility for yourself, that you have to understand Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander history and its people, and starting to understand and be aware of the social, economical and political contexts which Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people live in daily. It changes because legislation always changes around Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. But once you know and you've got that awareness, again, it's deep listening without action. You could listen, but if you don't do an action, it becomes irresponsible. So then it's a lot. What's your cultural sensitivity? What's the process? So you've got your input, you've learned, but then what's the process? And it's about understanding how your behaviours need to take in account the awareness that you've just learned, and how you may need to change some of your behaviours or practices, or even some of your value systems. I think for a lot of time when you do cultural fitness, because cultural fitness is about looking into some of the values that may have been given to you that could have been wrong, actually, when you think of the larger political context of Aboriginal people and Torres Strait Islander people. From that, you'll get the outcome, and the outcome that really what we're looking for is the ability to engage effectively with the people that you work with them for, and for the purpose of gaining best outcomes, especially in when we're working with families and Aboriginal children, that they feel a sense of belonging within your organisation, that they're not just coming in and seeing Aboriginal pictures on the wall and an Aboriginal flag. They actually can feel it. It's about a hearts and mind change. Can I come in and feel this place is safe? Do I feel like I belong here? Am I being heard? Am I being deeply listened to? Do they understand the concept of where I'm coming from? And if they don't, are they sitting in enough curiosity to try to understand that? So that's why we went for cultural fitness, because I think for too long what happens is you do a couple of courses, and then all of a sudden people think they're culturally safe, and I don't need to work on that again. Whereas we've turned it into a fitness model that you, just like when you go to the gym, if you don't go to the gym on a regular basis, you'll become lazy, and you'll probably become unfit. So you keep working on that fitness, because we do have a primal wound in Australia, and it is a primal wound that we just have not got this primal wound sorted out between Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people, the First Nations, to non-Aboriginal people. And I think we need to work that primal wound out, which means that we have to sit in spaces of being able to be culturally fit with each other, being curious, wanting to understand, wanting to change. How do we enter into relationship together, and what I call just relationships for better outcomes for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people? So for me, that's the gauntlet that was laid down to create culturally fit organisation, is to really think about it, and to keep thinking about it, and to keep doing, not just you've done it. It's you've got to keep doing it. You've got to live what you are actually talking about. You've got to live that out, not just in your daily practices at work. You can't be culturally fit if you just come to work and do it and then don't go home and sit in some of those uncomfortable conversations, or go back within your family group, because we all have a responsibility for cultural safety. So that's where cultural fitness came from. And so
Thanks,
I'm sure Eddie has something to say about it as well.
No, thanks, Sarah and Lee. Yeah, I agree. I guess just going on from that, I think one of the important things to do, I guess, for an organisation is to empower the voices, I think, of Aboriginal people. And again, I think, as Lee mentioned, self-determination is very, very important. So, when you come to your organisation, developing how your organisation operates, it's really important to think about, what steps you need to take to ensure that you actually hear the voice of Aboriginal people. So I guess for me, one of the things to be mindful of is when you're doing any research, or you're doing any policy development or program development or project development or implementation, it's really important to value the voices of Aboriginal people right at the beginning. A lot of organisations, I'll develop policies, I'll develop procedures, and when it's in its final draft, they'll then go and speak to the Aboriginal people, say, well, I've consulted with the Aboriginal community, When you've got the idea and you're writing it down on a napkin in the kitchen while you're having a coffee, that's the point where you need to think to yourself, that's where I need to then talk to an Aboriginal person. Talk to Aboriginal colleagues if you have Aboriginal colleagues, if they want to be part of the conversation. Again, don't expect Aboriginal people to be a walking Google for you within your organisation. They're there to do a job. They're not there to answer all your questions and solve all world problems. If people want to get involved in it, that's fine. So I guess another thing to be mindful of is when it comes to decision making. So the decision making is important. Aboriginal people need a seat at the table where decisions are made about us, not the breadcrumbs off the table. We need to take ownership of that table. I guess important around the decision making, talk about the decision making around research and policy development. It's about co-design. So co-designing with Aboriginal people is really, really important. And that also, again, Aboriginal people feel valued. Because as Aboriginal people, we need to be the authors of this research, project development, implementation, not the authorisers of it. So there's a big difference. There's a power imbalance sometimes within organisations about how influential Aboriginal people can be and how influential Aboriginal people are allowed to be before the organisation is ready to, I guess, acknowledge what they're doing. So having Aboriginal people within your organisation is great, but what happens within your organisation? What happens to Aboriginal people? How are Aboriginal people in positions of influence? How are they structured within your organisation? So are they just at the bottom level? Are they at middle management? Are they CEOs? Are the Aboriginal people on your board? Not only on your board, but are Aboriginal people the chair of the board? So if you want to start putting Aboriginal people, we need to start putting Aboriginal people in positions of influence where decisions can be made that impact us on a daily basis. Connecting with people in the community is also very, very important. Because if you're going to run a program, you want to know it's going to hit the mark and it's going to meet its outcomes, then you need the voices of Aboriginal people to ensure that it does that. So there is some accountability from organisations for Aboriginal people, especially around that self-determination. So they're important things to be mindful of. And that's, again, as we've said, that's an ongoing learning. That cultural awareness training, the cultural safety training, they're really, really important things. I think it's important also for people to have a mindset of where this country's come from, where it's at, and where we need to go. I think there are things to be important about how to create that culturally safe place. But as I said, this is not going to happen overnight. It's going to take a journey, and it's continual learning. And it's very difficult for people, to learn everything about every Aboriginal person, every cultural group, every language. We're not expecting you to do that. I don't know every language, every cultural practice with over 300 different Aboriginal groups within Australia. So it's about understanding that there's some commonalities between us in regards to our traditional beliefs, our values, and our practices and our protocols. They're things to be mindful of. And sometimes it's really important to put aside your beliefs and values to be open to listening and learning around Aboriginal people. People find it easy when they have things in common. When they don't have things in common, they find it a little bit more difficult to connect. But there's some great opportunities, and you don't want to miss those opportunities when it comes to connecting with Aboriginal people.
Yeah, thanks, Eddie.
Absolutely. So, Eddie, while you were talking, I was thinking about that, sort of beware of tokenism, but I also think there's so much more to consultation, with Aboriginal community and Aboriginal organisations with that. And I was thinking, the sort of that knife's edge that is the difference between self-determination, Aboriginal self-determination, and colonial load, because I was once in a project and government said, oh, Lee, we need to send communication to ACOs. So because it's going to ACOs, you can write that. And I said, well, that's not actually my job because you're funding these ACOs. And they said, oh, no, we thought with self-determination. And I said very kindly, look, that's not self-determination, that's colonial load. Because it's not my job to do that work. But what is self-determination is you write the piece of work, you provide it to me, and I give you feedback for change. So it's a learning experience, you know, for you and your organisation as well. So I think, yeah, that's that knife's edge is something that's really, really important to understand when you're working in consultation and co-design processes with Aboriginal organisations. It's understanding what mechanisms of self-determination are and how to go about embedding that. And really, when we look at it from a more general services practice, I would say that it really is strengths-based solution-focused practice, yeah, that embeds mechanisms for self-determination in those consultations as well.
Yeah, wonderful, thank you. Sarah, I just wanted to give you an opportunity to share your thoughts. Otherwise, I'd like to go a bit deeper on the organisational kind of level. But yeah, Sarah, any thoughts on that?
No, I reckon they've wrapped it up, and but I think the second question, I reckon, will lead into that.
Yeah, okay. So look, we're still at the organisational level. We're going to go to individuals soon enough. An important part of cultural safety is actually addressing racism and its impacts, and all three of you have spoken about this. And anti-racism is such an important aspect of cultural safety because it's that active process of identifying and eliminating racism through addressing attitudes, behaviours, structures and systems, though, from an organisational point of view. So, Sarah, it'd be good to just get your thoughts on what are some ways that organisations can be actively anti-racist and address racism in the quest for cultural safety.
Yeah. So it always reminds me of a quote from a Aboriginal elder, and she was an activist as well as an artist, and that's Auntie Lilia Watson. And what she says is, if you've come here to help me, you're wasting your time. If you've come here because your liberation is bound up with mine, then let us work together. And that's really what we're trying to do in cultural safety. It's a collective responsibility. So I'd ask organisations exactly the same as what Eddie and Lee have talked about. Do you have Aboriginal leadership? Are they consulted and have decision making, or is it a pacification? You know, do we do this? Oh, we're deep listening. We're listening to you. Thank you very much. But we'll go and do what we do anyway. You know, that's the pacification that often goes with co-design. They've already come with a design, but we've just gone and done this kind of pacification. We've heard you, thank you for that input, and we'll just go and do the same. So are you sitting with your Aboriginal leadership and your staff, like, you know, what I would say a culturally fit organisation would be in a just relationship. And when I say just a relationship, I think the other bits of practice that help with that is not just is solution and strength, but a restorative justice model. Because when we talk about restorative justice in a Western terminology, we think it's got to do with something in the courts and it's got to do with legal matters, whereas justice is where there is an injustice. And we see injustice for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. So I'd like to reclaim the justice word and bring it back to its intent, which is, how do you have just relationships? How do we have relationships with our Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander leaders that give them decision making, that actually we're led by Aboriginal practices, because you have a 60,000 plus year old knowledge base that could not have lived to be the oldest civilization if we did not have good practice. And so how are you led by Aboriginal practice within your organisation? Because we have a practice. And so, you know, do you put those practices in place? Are you allowing yourself to be guided in this just relationship, which is what we call the napachi, right? The two-way, the reciprocity. How do we do this together? The give and take that does this. So can you sit in truth telling? Can you do high support, high challenge? Because in these spaces, you do have to sit in truth telling, and truth telling not to harm, but to problem solve and look for solutions, because our liberations are bound together. We have to be in this, not because of funding cycles, not because of a RAP plan, not because that is what you got to do. You got to have a cultural, you know, it's part of the tick box of cultural safety. No, our liberations are bound together. We got to get this right, because if we can get this right, we are going to fix that primary wound. We're going to be able to just name it and be able to go, yes, Australia was an invaded country. As hard as that is and people have to say, yes, we are the colonisers. But that doesn't mean that we can't enter a relationship and we can't enter the truth telling of that. It just means we can speak honestly about it. We can speak honestly about the policies that are being put on out there. So it is that, how do we do this work that we need to do together? And we have to do some unlearning for that to happen. Because the unlearning, and to be able to sit in these, what I would call vulnerable conversations, because it's the vulnerability, right? So we'll sit in the fire of truth telling, but we're not burnt by it. We are strengthened by it. And I think that is something that we need to start doing with cultural safety. How do you set the right conditions to be able to sit together for truth telling? To be able to, as non-Aboriginal people, hear the truth from Aboriginal people, not be offended, not get upset, but go, what is my responsibility in that? Doesn't mean you have to fix it, because we can't fix this. We can't fix the racism, we can't fix it, but we've all got our sense of responsibility. What is my responsibility? What's the bit that I can do in this space? What's the bit that my organisation can do? What's the bit that our organisation can do? How are we influenced? How are we led by Aboriginal decision making? How are we led by Aboriginal practice? So we do need to look at racism. And the other thing that we're not very good at looking at is white privilege, because there is a certain privilege in this country, and it is done by the colour of the skin. If a group of Aboriginal boys are walking down the street, they're going to be treated very different to a group of non-Aboriginal boys. And we need to be honest about that. And we need to start truth telling about that, because we need to change how we think about each other. And so, when I think about that, it needs to be embedded into the work that we do, because that's what you're going to hear. These are the stories of injustice that are going to come across your table. So you're going to constantly work with unjust stories when you work with Aboriginal people and Torres Strait Islander people, because it's the unjust that comes out in the daily practice. But then we can't just think that, in an unjust story, how are we going to find solutions together? So, we have to look at what we do is we do unpack white privilege. We do sit there and go, there is a privilege in this country. There is, there's been stolen wages. There was slavery. Right now, we've got some stolen wages happening, some reparations going through. So we have to sit with the contemporary versions of where we see this as well. So it should be put through. So RAP plans, we don't have a RAP plan in our organisation, because it started with our RAIN. What we call is we've got a RAIN plan on a page, but we also have our statement of intent, which means that we're not just going to have a RAIN and be assessed just on those actions that we've decided this year to do. No, how does it pulsate through the blood of the organisation on every level? What's HR's responsibility? What are your executive managers' responsibility? What are your leaders' responsibility? What are your team leaders? Like, how are we all living out cultural fitness? Because that's what we're saying. We've got to live it, right? So what we say is, we, on the onboarding of new staff, we set the expectations of the organisation straight out. So then people aren't feeling like, because we often see white fragility. I didn't realise I was going to be put through that. I didn't realise that, my values were going to be tested. We, on the onboarding of staff, it is the expectations are set on and how we're going to behave in this space, and that it is compulsory to do our cultural fitness. So you'll do a 2-day online, and then you will do it. So it's compulsory, just like it's compulsory to do mandated reporting training and to get your police checks and you're working with children's checks. Part of our organisation, it is compulsory that you will do cultural fitness, and you can't get out of it. And HR, just like they mandate everything else, they're responsible to make sure that every person within our organisation does that training and then does the follow-up, because that is their responsibility to make sure from a HR level that they are ensuring that everyone's doing the right thing, and so we get the right people and the right mindset within our organisation. We also in HR policies and with our leadership and managers, we kind of look at, okay, so if an Aboriginal person applies, we will give them an interview. Even if they might not get the job, we will give them an interview so we can help them go, okay, this is what went well, so we will reply back, this is what went well, this is what didn't get you over. So we all have a responsibility to keep working in the hard spaces. And that is because if we want to achieve if we want to achieve this space that we're kind of going to, we have to think about, if we get it right for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people, we'll get it right for everyone. Because that is the biggest kind of a dilemma that we're working with in this country. So if we get it right here, we're going to get it right with everyone. The other thing that we do is remeasure ourselves on these points of things that we do. So, you know, we have a plane on the page that really clearly illustrates our intent, how we know that we're doing it, what we want to achieve, and how we'll behave, and how we know that we're making a difference, and we measure ourselves to that. Because then if we're not hitting them, we actually have to look at ourselves and go, what happened there? We're not saying, we're not going to pretend that we're a culture fit. We're just, okay, that's, you know, we didn't measure up there. Like, you know, we've got Aboriginal staff saying that they didn't feel safe in that, you know, we've just recently gone through a CMLS change, like a client service. They didn't feel safe in that. What was that about? Okay, we need to unpack that, and we need to look at ourselves. So you often have to look at what is your responsibility in it. And the organisation has to look at what was our responsibility, what happened, why are the communities saying they don't feel safe to walk through our doors? Which means, what Eddie was saying, then you have to go out to the community and say, what's making you feel unsafe to use our services? And then you have to hear it. But then it's no good not just hearing it and not doing something about it, because then you've got to do something about it, which means you might have to change some of your organisational ways of working. And so you do have to unpack the racism. And, you know, a lot of people are calling it cultural bias these days, the cultural bias that people have, that needs to be looked at. So when we do a cultural fitness training, we always do it with an Aboriginal worker and non-Aboriginal worker, because sometimes it's non-Aboriginal people that need to challenge each other. You know, it shouldn't always be, oh, it's the mad black person out the front challenging me, making me feel uncomfortable. Actually, sometimes it's good to have the non-Aboriginal person out the front challenging and making you feel uncomfortable, because otherwise it's that colonial load that Lee was talking about. We're always the ones out the front. We're always the one putting up the challenge, when actually where are our allies in this? When are non-Aboriginal people going to stand up and actually challenge their own people? So the other thing that we have is what we call cultural fitness supervision, where our Aboriginal staff can go, I'm working with this person and I'm finding what they're saying is actually not okay. It's really racist and it's not safe. So instead of putting that colonial load on that person, it's like your manager now has to pull that up. So cultural fitness training is going, also, we're not just going to fire that person. We want that person to really feel what it's doing. So there's a whole supervision process about what do you think happens when you say those things for your Aboriginal staff, your Aboriginal colleague in that room. So we're wanting to bring people on a hearts and minds change, because by calling someone racist and getting rid of them, they'll just go somewhere else and be racist. Do you know? So someone has to do the hard work, and usually that's what we do. Racist, out you go. But actually, who's going to work with that person to really get them to change their heart and their mind around how they see Aboriginal people in this country, or what their role is in that? So that's, you know, it's hard work. Let me just put it out there. This is not something that you'll just go, cool, we get a RAP plan, we're culturally safe, we've ticked all the boxes. It is the hard work pieces that need to happen, which means that you need to go into the high support, high challenge. You need to go into the vulnerability, and we need to go into these places together to go, let's unpack that, because that's not sitting right for you and that's not sitting right for me. And so we need to have those conversations if we want to get into just relationships to create change and to be influenced by each other for a better system, is what I would say to that.
Right. Lee, Eddie, what do you reckon?
Yeah. I think that is, yeah, I absolutely agree with every single word you're saying, Sarah. And I think, like, it comes down to the details, doesn't it? I see so many organisations say, even for example, a leave policy. You know, bereavement leave is only, you know, there's only a few days a year, whereas on average, an Aboriginal person attends at least 10 funerals a year. And believe me, if we could get to all of them that we wanted to be at, unfortunately this year would almost be at one a week. You know, we really use those times to come together and be together and draw on each other for strength as well. So they're such an important, you know, place for us to be. So I think looking at, you know, just look at the details within your policies. You know, I've seen so many codes of conduct that have nothing around anti-racism or discrimination with racism involved, and human resource managers not knowing how to address something because it should be in policy. So I think so much does come down to the foundations of your organisation and how racism is going to be dealt with. And also the understanding of, you know, the trauma that can happen in instances like I was talking about, Sarah, with the cultural supervision. If that someone in an organisation is acting in a culturally unsafe way, you know, how the way that you're addressing that is absolutely fantastic. But I think, you know, it's so good to be doing the hard work and training people, but also the trauma that it can place on the person who's experienced that racism, you know, with that lack of knowledge of intergenerational trauma and the way it can impact on Aboriginal people through past policies that were so racist and discriminatory, but also understanding that even in our current day, there's not a single system or law that has been designed to directly benefit Aboriginal people. You know, nothing that we work within or live within aligns with our law, and that, you know, we are constantly having to adapt and adjust so that we can align with systems that are not created to necessarily support us. So internally within organisations, I think that's why it's so important to look into every corner and every aspect of where you can embed mechanisms for self-determination, understand what self-determination truly means from the community perspective, and make sure that we've got those ongoing commitments at all levels towards cultural safety, so that parallel and reflective practice can occur in between all levels, which then reaches down to support amazing client outcomes and a safer environment for Aboriginal people to want to come to your organisation and seek supports. So, Eddie, have you got anything to add?
I'm just going to add on how to be an ally. What's allyship? What does that actually mean? I think that's another thing people can start to learn, I guess, a little bit about. And I guess being an ally is, yes, being supportive and understanding, you know, sometimes the struggle that Aboriginal people might have. But there's certain things I guess you need to be mindful of in that process, you know, and understanding allyship principles is being prepared to not always be part of the conversation. Yep. Not always being part of the decision making. You might have some really great ideas, and that's wonderful. But sometimes there's Aboriginal business, and sometimes we want the opportunity to be able to have a yarn amongst ourselves to be able to, you know, provide, you know, some informed decision or advice to you know, to other people who want to be, I guess, involved. You know, take time to listen to us as well is important. You know, no two experiences are the same when it comes to racism and inequality. You know, value truth-telling. I think, as we mentioned before, and storytelling, they're very powerful tools, and they can help educate you. Be prepared to just sit and listen. I think there was a saying, you know, we have 2 ears and 1 mouth, which means we should listen twice as much as we speak. I think something along those lines. Now, I appreciate, you know, the importance of self-education. I think is important as well. So, and again, yeah, call out racism if you see it. You know, the standards we walk past are the ones we accept. What are you prepared to accept? And what's your organisation prepared to accept if it's happening within your organisation? You know, people have different experiences. You know, some people might feel some sort of trauma in having to challenge somebody. They witness racism within an organisation, and that can be a challenge. So everybody's different in how they'll react. But I'm pretty sure there's lots of mechanisms within your workplace that you can go to that will support you. It's not always about confronting the person when you witness it, you have mechanisms within your organisation to be able to, you know, throw that up the line if you're feeling like that as well. So, yeah, I guess different people's experiences will determine whether they will challenge somebody or not. And if you feel confident to do that, that's great. I guess one of the conversations you can start to have with the person is, why do you feel like that? What experience have you had? You know, it's almost like you have this unconscious bias or this belief about Aboriginal people. Where did you learn that? So it's really about, how do you ask the question, how do you get in a conversation with them, rather than talking at people about what's happened, talk with people. I think that's important to do, to try and understand, you know, where they're coming from and what's their worldview compared to an Aboriginal worldview, because it's a little bit different. You know, we have this holistic view and, you know, social, emotional, physical and spiritual well-being is important. You know, they're very important things from an Aboriginal perspective. I guess when you think of a mainstream worldview, it's, you know, it's got to be scientific, it's got to be evidence-based, it's got to be, you know, you got to prove it. You know, so it's important to just understand people's, I guess, worldviews, even communication styles. I might leave that to later. Anyway, yeah, communication styles, might leave that to a little later. To my bit.
No, Eddie, beautiful segue. I think we're really...
Can I just answer something to Eddie? Because I think there was something really important when he talked about allies, right? Because allies means that you do the work as well. So, you know, I can just think of a couple of times where, you know, trying to work where people have come to me and gone, oh, I heard so-and-so say this. Wasn't that terrible? And so I've, you know, for any Aboriginal people out there listening that are in organisations, because then what do we do with that? And then I felt like, oh, well, now I've just been burdened with that information, and they've been able to just hand that to me now and walk away. And so I think the allyship is, what do you burden your Aboriginal colleagues with? So then you know, it wasn't until I started getting a little bit more safe in feeling safe that I was able to go, what do you want me to do with that? What? And then I'd be like, oh, I just thought you should know. For what reason should I have known that? Was that for the benefit of you, or was that for the benefit of me? Because I don't think that was for the benefit of me. I think that was and so, like Eddie said, there are channels that you can go to. So, you know, don't tell me. You need to go and tell. Are you going to go and have this conversation with their team leader? Because they're like, oh, well, I didn't want to get them in trouble. So then why bring that to me and burden me with that? You know, so that's that colonial overload again. That, you know, and sometimes people don't even know they're doing it. Do you know, they're doing this and going, oh, well, I thought I was being a good ally because I thought you should know that they think like that. But for why? You know, like, what now you've left that with me for me to carry again. And that's often what people do, like, you know, and then we get the weight down of now I've got to think different about that person. When it's actually, you take the right procedures, like Eddie was saying, you go to the team leader. Like, don't come to the Aboriginal person and put that burden back on the Aboriginal person. And the caucusing, like Eddie said, sometimes we have a regular thing here, which is a caucus. Sometimes we'll be sitting together and I might say to my Aboriginal staff, I reckon we need to unpack that ourselves for a little bit, and then we'll come back and talk to you as the major group. And that's something that's been allowed in our organisation for a long time. And sometimes when you get new people on board, they're like, why are they all the Aboriginal staff going over there to have a conversation? You know, like they're nervous about it, like, you know, they're colluding over there or something. You know, sometimes we need to unpack safely for ourselves to go, what do we think about that? How do we get back in and explain it to ourselves, for ourselves to them? But we need to group, and sometimes non-Aboriginal people need to group so they can actually have their actual truthful conversations without us in the room. And that's where your allies are really good in those rooms when we're not there, to kind of go, yeah, what, you know, to pull out those people in that room. So I find caucusing a really, like I said, sometimes we do need to break up and kind of think about that conversation is just for Aboriginal people. It's not for your conversation to have, which reminded me of, and it happens quite a bit, because most people start into this work because they want to work with injustice, right? They want to make it a just system. So, you know, everyone like, okay, we're justice warriors, so we don't want injustice. Sometimes that justice warrior can go too far for Aboriginal people, and you start to talk for us. And all of a sudden the problem is yours. And you start, and it's like, whoa, wait a minute. Like, you now own our story, yet you've not lived the racism that we lived. So, you know, we've lived the racism, we've lived what it's like to be an Aboriginal person in this, and then you've come along as this social justice warrior, making it actually sometimes worse for us. In all good intent again, when it's like, it's not your story to own, it's your story to call out and make people aware of their own and your responsibility in it, but not to talk for us. And that's just another consideration piece to think of, yeah.
Yeah, that's great, Sarah. Thank you. And yes, I think we're really now at the point where we're thinking about individuals and how individuals can be more culturally safe, and what does it look like for someone in a workplace. So, Eddie, I'm going to throw to you first about that individual and what that looks like, and some tips and some pointers for people.
Yeah, so I think one of the things, probably one of the important things is do a bit of a reflection of yourself. Who are you? What do you bring to the table? You know, it's important to understand from your own perspective, what is your awareness, what is your attitude, your behaviour, knowledge and skills when, I guess, dealing with Aboriginal colleagues or community. So you might have a really good awareness of some of the issues that impact Aboriginal people. Your attitude might not be so good. So if your attitude's not very good, that's then going to impact on your behaviour. And if it impacts on your behaviour, then your colleague, Aboriginal colleague, or your patient or your community people will have a bad experience. So it's about behaviour, it's about your ability to gain knowledge. So if your attitude and awareness and behaviour aren't very good, it's going to inhibit your ability to gain knowledge, to educate yourself, to be open to listening and learning, and to be able to then practice the skills when engaging with Aboriginal people. It has that flow-on effect. I think it's important. But I think it's also important that we ensure that Aboriginal people are valued, supported in a safe environment, whether it be your colleagues, your clients, or community members. And there's a couple of things to be mindful of, or a combination of things I think people need to be aware of. It's around your mindset, it's around behaviours, and it's around how you practice your everyday practice. And if that practice, I guess, fosters trust and inclusion within your organisation. So from a mindset perspective, it's important to be self-aware, understanding your own identity, your own biases, as we've mentioned before, your own privilege. I mean, if people have probably seen the privilege walk. There's a few videos on YouTube where you can watch the privilege walk, where there's a series of 35 questions. Everyone lines up on a line, and there's a series of 35 questions. They either take a step forward or a step back based on your answer. And then at the end of the 35 questions, it determines where you stand. And there's some people at the front of the room, there's obviously people at the back of the room. So I guess understanding your privilege, and can I say, you know, there's nothing wrong with privilege. It's just the thing is you need to understand that, yes, you might have it, but there are people who don't have it. So it's about recognise those who don't have the privilege, and what are some of the things you need to do within your organisation to ensure not only privileged people can access it, but how can people who don't have that privilege, how can they access those services as well? So it's about cultural humility. So it's about acknowledging that you don't know everything, you don't know all the answers, but you're there to be open to listening and learning. You know, when it comes to your behaviour, active listening is important, and engagement. Listening to those voices, as we've talked about before, without interrupting or imposing your perspective on what the Aboriginal person might be saying. So show, I guess, some genuine interest and understanding, and understanding the challenges as well that come with that. You're not going to know everything, but just being respectful, I think, is important to do as well. So it is about, again, respecting protocols. I think a lot of organisations do acknowledgement of country. They have the flags and the artwork and the symbols up there, and that's, as we mentioned before, it's all beautiful, it's all wonderful. But what happens behind that? What happens, you know, at the front desk when a person actually goes and talks to the receptionist? How are they treated? What's the communication style like between the receptionist and the Aboriginal person, for instance? So it is about educating yourself. It's about understanding, I guess, communication styles. So we as Aboriginal people are high context, indirect communicators. versus mainstream Australia, Japan, UK, America, are low context direct communicators. So for us as Aboriginal people, we are very relational people. It's about building trust. It's about being respectful. Body language is very powerful. Silence is very powerful. And they're things to be mindful of when trying to, build those relationships, which can be long lasting if done right, and you're being patient. Sometimes when people talk to an Aboriginal person for the first time, they may not actually get to the topic what they're there to talk about. It might be just building the relationship type of thing. So it can take time for that to happen. When you come to low context direct communicators, they ask 100 questions and want 70 answers straight away. They don't care about building relationships. They don't care about, what you had, what you did on the weekend and what football team you support. They just want the answer and they just want to move on. So I guess it's important to understand that as well when dealing with Aboriginal people and trying to, create that culturally safe place. And again, as we said, call out racism, be a support, be an advocate. Success, when I think about success, it's about Aboriginal people feeling comfortable to express our identity and our culture without judgment or any form of discrimination. As we said before, policies and practice need to reflect the genuine respect for Aboriginal people and how you value the voice. Those things are really, really important, and doing those strong working relationships is important. So I guess from that individual perspective, that's one thing to look at in regards to just trying to create that safe workplace. I think the next question was about having a conversation about racism.
Yeah, that's right. But before we go to that, if time permits, of course, because the clock is ticking very fast. Lee, what have you got any thoughts on? Yeah, what does it look like for an individual to be really culturally safe in a workplace?
Look, I think, as both Eddie, Sarah and myself have spoken about, really get comfortable with silence. The art of deep listening is so important. It is the most important thing that we use with each other, that we show our respect through deep listening, because so often in these busy jobs, while someone's talking, we're planning ahead. We're actually thinking, we're planning, we've already got half the actions in place. We've got to take the time to truly hear someone's voice, because believe me, we can tell if someone's listening to respond and not truly listening. It's also amazing how uncomfortable so many people are with silence. It's really interesting. Even the noises people will make while you're talking, you'll find we don't do that. We listen, we truly listen. So I think just being really conscious of yourself, I think be genuinely curious, find something that you're passionate about from our history. Look into it. Feel like you're a bit of an expert in something. There's so much out there. There's so many different shows to watch. But I also think the evolution of language is something I really just want to touch on quickly, because you'll notice throughout today, we are saying colonial load. A lot of people use the term cultural load, but it's not our culture that's the burden. It's the ongoing impacts of colonisation. And, so often through social media and even mainstream media, we hear the old rhetoric of, it happened years ago, why don't you get over it? But the ongoing impacts happen today. I work alongside so many stolen generations, and, I know the impacts. I see it every day. These people are my aunties, my uncles. The impacts are still happening. We are still impacted by intergenerational trauma. And do you know what? That's okay. We're getting there. But the importance of language, so colonial load, we've got also be aware when you're doing an acknowledgement, okay, of using the term our first peoples. Okay, we don't belong to you, we're not yours. Okay, so first people is fine, first Australians is fine, but not our. Even things like, what else was I thinking about? Even like, say for family violence, for example, when you're looking at using the terms victim, survivor, and perpetrators, don't use labels. you know, use behaviours that can change. It's a person using violence or a person experiencing violence, because, you know, we are not victims of family violence. It was never a part of our culture. This is another ongoing impact of colonisation. So it's a person experiencing violence, person using violence, things like that. I think it's just so important to be mindful of the language you use. Another thing is the term ATSI. You know, we're not an acronym either. Just saying, I have heard it in my training. People say, oh, the ATSI team or ATSI clients. And, you know, I've got to very gently bring them around and talk about the importance of language and its ongoing evolution. You know, I have stopped calling, well, mainstream services mainstream. I say general, because mainstream sounds, it's for, you know, Anglo-Saxon people in a Western model, whereas we say general services, it sounds a bit more inclusive to everyone. So it's, yeah, one of the last things I just want to touch on is the importance of language evolution. So yeah, I hope you all pick up today, deep listening and especially in colonial oath.
Yeah, wonderful. Thanks, Lee. Sarah, any final thoughts from you? Because we've only got 2 minutes left.
I was just thinking in that when we're thinking about individual, especially for any management or team leadering people that are sitting in this space around, also where we have found ourselves in the most stuck positions is when people don't have an expectation of their Aboriginal workers, right? So they let them get away with more than they would let their non-Aboriginal workers get away with, and then all of a sudden we're at a you know, a performance review space. And then when I look at it, because that's my kind of look, to go, wait a minute, how did we get to here? How did you not notice? Would this have got away with any other of your staff members? Would you have let them get away with this much? And they'd be like, no. So why did you do that here? So again, that's the claiming the responsibility, right? Oh, well, I didn't want to look like I was racist. Oh, well, I thought they needed a little bit, you know, because they're Aboriginal, I gave them a little bit more special attention. I gave them a little bit more lenience. That's not helping us stand into self-determination. And then what that leads to is an Aboriginal person losing their job. When actually, so that accountability also needs to be as part of that, to go, actually, you're not being right. Like, again, you can either go into that classification of going, oh, I've got an Aboriginal person working for me, so I do all these really nice things for them, when actually, no, they're an employee too. And that's my thing with HR, is they're an employee too. And actually that team leader has some accountability in this, because the Aboriginal person's now going to lose their job because the team leader didn't do theirs. And we've got here. So I just want to remind that the challenge in that too is to not go into the classification, go, I'm not going to do that because I think I'm racist. Do you know, there is some, and this is where I go, there's some internal learnings that need to kind of come in that. And the other one was the slowing down, which is what Lee talked about, and the not talking spaces, you know, the relational spaces. And when I say there's a 60,000-year-old knowledge base, and how are you learning from it? So often what I do in my role here is to re-indigenise, I say, because, you know, you got to re-indigenise some of the systems. So we do what we call a check-in, and it's me purposely slowing people down, right? And so every day, every meeting we start with a check-in, and I'll ask them something personal about each other, and we'll go around, and it takes a little bit of time, and you can see them get all flustered, you know, like, oh, here comes Sarah with her crazy. But what that has happened is we're at a bigger relational process with each other, that we can actually now have these safe relationships to go, let's discuss that. So, you know, where do you create relationship? And one of them is slowing down and entering into relationship. So, you know, I'll ask crazy things like, if you could explain your job as a sport, what would it be? And they're like, oh man. But then of course what you have is laughter, like you do in normal relationships. So you've got to find spaces to do relationship with each other in the work if you want culturally fit organisations as well. Otherwise it will just go, oh, non-Aboriginal people work at a very fast pace. You know, this system works at a very fast pace. You burn each other out, you burn yourselves out, let alone us. So, you know, where do you actually find, because we knew how to slow down and deeply think about things, but still get the job done. So yeah, that's the other thing.
Oh, fabulous. Look, I knew this time would come faster than we wanted, but we are at time. We could have spoken all day, I think, and for our audience, I think you'll understand why we made the decision not to have a live Q&A, because we wanted to just maximise the conversation with Lee and with Sarah and with Eddie. So a huge thank you to the three of you. It's been amazing. Thank you to our audience. I hope that you've really taken a lot out of this conversation and that you do have a look at the resources that are provided. Thank you to the AIFS communication team, especially to Erin and to Amy, and to our child, family, evidence and evaluation team, especially Mandy. Thank you to the three of you working in the background. Please, if you haven't, subscribe to the AIFS newsletter, and that's when you can get a notification about the webinar when it's available for reviewing. Feedback on the webinar would be much appreciated through a short survey. And this is the last of the AIFS webinars for the year, so thank you so much for your time. I hope that you have a restful break, and we will be back with our program for next year. So thank you very much. Welcome back to the extended Q&A session of our webinar on how to create more culturally safe workplaces. We have a few additional questions from our audience, so very grateful to our three panellists for giving us a little bit more time. So one of the questions that came through was, how do individuals have honest and safe conversations about racism and cultural safety? And Eddie, I'd love to get you to kick us off here, please.
Yeah, no worries. Thanks, Kira. So I guess, yeah, having an honest conversation, I guess, requires some sensitivity and respect, and a commitment to listen and learn. I think they're things that are important. I think we've talked earlier before about educating yourself, so that's really important to do that. You know, building trust, again, is very, very important. You know, to have those meaningful conversations and connections, because you might be delving into some very heavy topics. You know, so that's really important, to be patient, and again, be open to listening and learning, but also just showing a bit of respect, I think, is important as well. You know, I guess approach the conversation with some sincerity. You know, it's not like a checkbox exercise where you have to tick off everything. It's the conversational flow, but it is about that. I think Lee talked about earlier about that. It's that deep listening that's really, really important, because if somebody experiences racism, they really want to share their experience without interruption or any sort of defensiveness. I think that's important. Avoid assumptions, I think, that you might have about the person's experience of racism. Not everybody experiences the same thing, so it's unique to that person. So avoid generalising or, you know, stereotyping those things. I guess, accept discomfort. It's normal to feel uncomfortable about these situations, so it's going to take, you know, a bit of listening and learning. Use open-ended questions. So things like, can you share your perspective on your experience? You know, how do you feel about this racism that affects you every day? You know, what can I do better to understand and support you and your experience? So avoid dismissing or minimising someone's experience by saying things like, you know, it's not racist, it happens to everybody. You know, avoid being, I guess, defensive and over-emotional. So check your own guilt and defensiveness. Don't centre the conversation around yourself. Don't say things like, oh, I'm not racist. Everybody experiences racism. I've got lots of Aboriginal friends. I mean, those sort of things sort of derail the conversation and, you know, will make the person feel uncomfortable. So again, it's about being open to listening and learning. Ask how to support. You know, what are some of the things we need to change within our organisation? Do we need to create some culturally safe spaces for people to feel comfortable to be able to open up and express some of their concerns? So I guess the environment needs to be free of any judgment or or discrimination. So use of language is important, being respectful, talking with the person, not at the person, and just being patient. Because it's going to be a lot, like it's going to take a time to learn it. So don't expect it to happen overnight. So I guess it's just being prepared for that, hopefully that commitment for change within your organisation.
Yeah, thanks, Eddie.
I was just thinking while you were talking, Eddie, and I thought there's also, and I've certainly experienced this, you know, that reverse racism. You know, I was in a managers meeting one day in a big general organisation, and the chair asked me if I'd like to do an acknowledgement, and the person in the highest position of power in that room laughed and said, "Why is she doing it?" And this person said, "You know, just to acknowledge the Aboriginal person in the room." This person in position of power laughed and said, "How Aboriginal can you be? You know, like, are you 1/16th?" Everyone else in the room was cringing. Like, everyone was visibly cringing. But no, he kept going. Is it 1/16th, 1/32? Like, come on, what is it? What is it? How Aboriginal do you have to be to claim you're Aboriginal? And I think it's just so ignorant, not only to keep doubling down, but couldn't even read a room, you know? So, yeah, I don't know how intentional that was or what happened there, but it was absolutely horrific. You know, it was a horrific experience. And I think even when like we're onboarding staff or we are, you know, working with people in community, asking the question of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander status is so important. Like, ask the question. It's just a question, you know. Do you identify as Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander? Because so many people try to assume, and I've had this happen to me often as well, "Oh, you're not Aboriginal, are you?" It's like a complete dismissal of my connection to my culture, like instant complete dismissal. And it's like me trying to fight to prove that I'm Aboriginal. So yeah, it's just, I think especially if you realise you've gotten something wrong, own it. Just say, "Oh, that was really terrible. I didn't mean that to come out that way. I don't know how to word this, but that was really terrible of me." Own it. Just own it. You know, it's okay. Sarah?
Yeah, I'm going to talk about how you call out racism when you see racism or when it's been pointed out to you. So I just know some feedback, especially in my as a manager and an executive manager, and always been in the leadership space. As a leader or a team leader or a manager, we have relationships with people. You know, that's we live and learn, and you know, in a world of relationships. And I had some Aboriginal staff come to me and say, "This is what's happened," and then they went, "But we don't want you to tell her anything." And I said, "No, I can't do that. You've brought it to me as a manager." So you know, I had to make two sides accountable here, right? Which was hard when you're walking two spaces here. So I said, "I can't. Now that you've brought it to me as a manager, it is a thing. We are now in this space." And so I do have to call this out. So I will have conversations with her around this. And so what I said to my Aboriginal staff was, "What do you want from this? What do you want? You know, what do you think should happen? And you know, what attitudes would you like to see change?" And so then when I went to the non-Aboriginal person who I had a very close relationship, who was like totally shocked, "Sarah, you know, you and I are very good friends. I'm not racist." I said, "No, I need you to think about this. Why would 3 Aboriginal women come to me to tell me this?" So I said, "I don't want you to think about it." I said, "Why do you think they've come to me? What about your behaviour is making them feel, do you think is, you know," so you have to get everyone to reflect and take responsibility, you know. So it was an interesting space to be, because this person was so distressed by it. But my role was not to hold her distress as an Aboriginal person, and that's often what non-Aboriginal people do when they're being called racist, is they'll go to their closest Aboriginal friend or their dark friend and says, "I'm not racist, am I?" No, that's not what you do. You need to reflect. And just recently I've had it again where I've had to say to someone, take away the position and the title. So take away that person's position, take away that person's title, and go, "Why do you think an Aboriginal person said that to you? where do you think that's coming from? And I want you to go deep and come back, like, you know, we weren't going to solve it right then and then. I said, think about that. When you've got the headspace, I'm going to give you to next week. I want to have another meeting, and then you come back to me with what you think happened. Because again, we don't want to just call people out being racist and then off you go, and they stuff those Aboriginal people calling me racist. I'm not racist. We want them to think about, what is that? What was there? And then often people come back, and if you've got safe enough relationships with people, what they'll say is, I think I know what I did. Well, what do you need to do now to make that right? What do you need to do to make that right with the person that you've offended? What do you think you need to do? How are you going to do it? And so, you know, again, you've got to put that responsibility back, because you want to create changes. And so, you know, when we call and talk about racism, people get all anxious because we know we're going to go in space of vulnerability. Like Eddie said, we're going to go into hard topics, right? And people are going to get hurt. Their core value is going to get hurt. How dare you call me racist? How dare you say that wasn't racist? That's my experience. So it is that thing of, how do we get people, which often means don't put them in the room, because often what people do is go, oh, we'll sort this out. We'll put everyone in the room and we'll call it out. No, that's also making it unsafe. You need to make sure people are ready to restore. Like, are they ready to reflect on their behaviour? Are they ready to restore their behaviour? If not, they might need a little bit more work. But if you put people in front of people, when one, they haven't reflected of their actions, they haven't thought about their responsibility in that action, and three, they're not ready to even restore and do some change in their space. So, you know, you need to look for, are they ready to change? Are they taking responsibility? Are they reflecting? And are they ready to restore in this space and do some apologising and some accountability pieces? If so, then I might put them all together and have this conversation. But I'm not going to do that, because I could create more damage. So when we go to calling out racism and doing that, we really have to think. And again, this is where your input, your cultural learning is really important. So I'm married into a very large European family, and they often will ask me things like, oh, well, you know, we came over here on the boat, and my family worked really hard in the market garden, and that's how they got their houses. And so instead of going into an argument with them, I'll just turn around and say, isn't that great that your family could come over here on a boat and own and purchase land? I said, because Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people couldn't do that until they got the right to even be humans. So your family came over here with a privilege that we didn't have. Isn't that great? And then I leave it, because then they have to think about it. And again, it's like, what do you mean they couldn't own? So then you get them interested in the topic, right? and the policy that they didn't even know existed. They didn't even know that existed. Oh, we just thought you could own land. What do you mean you couldn't purchase land? No, it was against the law for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander purchase land, because we weren't accountable as human beings. Yeah, you know. So again, yeah, that's right. Before they put all that in, Eddie. But yeah, that's the thing. So education and having wisdom around policies and procedures, past policies, procedures, is really good to be able to go, oh, did you know that? You know, and then you leave it, because you can kill people with the facts to change their own values. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Sarah. Okay, so this builds on some of the discussion in the webinar around organisational cultural safety training, and I know that a lot of people in the chat were asking more about things like the cultural fitness, Sarah, that you talked about. Can you tell us more about how you prepare your staff and your organisation for the actual process of cultural safety training? How do you assess readiness for change? You know, what's the starting point that you want to kind of improve from? So Sarah, I might just hand back to you in the first instance.
Yep. So we do a so people do a form around before they go into their cultural fitness training to see where they're sitting. Then we do a after, and then we do one 6 months and then 12 months. But before we even started rolling out cultural fitness within the organisation, what they done was cultural fitness for all the executive staff, because if your leaders aren't in the headspace, right, you know, often what we do is we start with the workers, but then the workers go and have their supervisions and their kinds of being led by the leader. So executive staff first, to unpack it and really know what they're doing and what their role is going to be in this space, because managers feed up to executive managers. So then we went to the managers. And so when we rolled out with the managers, if they felt that, you know, things weren't, well, I need to unpack this a little bit more, you had a whole team of executive managers that the managers could go up and have some of that supervision, what we call cultural fitness supervision. Then from the managers, we went to the team leaders. So if the team leaders were all distressed about it, going, they've got a group of management that they could go to. Then we went to the people that were delivering service delivery, because then they were being led by their team leaders. Do you know what I'm saying? So instead of doing it just, so you do have to orchestrate, you have to think about this. You do have to kind of go, there is some bits that have to be put in place so you don't make it worse, because the worst thing you can do is kind of go, oh, we'll just get all of those people that are doing the work on the ground to do it, but then they're all triggered and, you know, feeling like their values have been challenged, or they're feeling unsafe, because we have people that feel I felt unsafe in that room, even though the room is safe, it's just their values were triggered. And they go to their team leaders, yeah, they should never have made you feel like that. When actually you need a group of team leaders that go, tell me about that, and be curious with them in that. So, you know, you need to kind of scaffold it and have the right things around ready for people to go into this work. And that's the good allyship stuff as well, you know, to be able to have non-Aboriginal people be able to have these hard conversations with their own people, instead of going, oh, now we need an Aboriginal person to come and fix all of that up. No, sometimes you need the non-Aboriginal people to go, oh, well, I didn't have that experience, so I'm interested to know why your experience was different to mine. So that's the kind of, you know, you need the right scaffolding is my, and you need to have people ready to do it, because if you're not ready to take on the cultural fitness space, you could have someone upset and go, oh, that's it, I'm too stressed to come to work, I'm going to go and work cover. And then what happens is you just don't do it at all, because, oh no, now that's a big problem, we got work health safety occupations, and, you know, like, so we'll just close it down altogether. So your org needs to be ready to take on what's going to happen when you challenge a mainstream mindset around taking responsibility and learning about the racism in their country, because it's not something we like to talk about.
Lee, keen for your views here. I mean, you do cultural safety training all of the time, and your reflections on, yeah, what makes an organisation ready to learn, change, adapt.
And look, I completely agree with Sarah. It's the ongoing conversations, and it's that keeping those conversations alive, but also an expectation for people to continue their self-learning, you know, when they find something that they do become passionate about. And I think, I mean, there's so many things to become passionate about. And the approach we take to delivering training across Victoria, it's just a truth-telling approach. You know, it's mandatory training for all staff within the Orange Door Family Violence Safety Hubs at all levels. So we take the same approach, Sarah. We work from the top down. We want to make sure that when staff are going to people senior to them, that you know, they're ready there with them, you know, having received the same information. And we really take an approach of the fact that every single person in this country just deserves to know the truth. You know, it doesn't need to be whitewashed, it doesn't need to be prettied down. There is no point feeling bad about it. There is nothing any one person here today in our training we talk to and just say, you know, none of you have done any of this, but we want you to hear it. You deserve to know the truth, because that means you can then walk alongside us. You can take our stories, you can take our learnings, you can take them out and challenge racism. You can take them to the dinner table, sometimes to your parents' house. We've had a few people come back and talk about that, because it's not only 4 different sessions of training that builds up the knowledge of the amazing work that's happening in different frameworks, action plans, all sorts of stuff like that, but we teach how to implement these within practice. We also go through, you know, the beauty of life pre-colonisation, before we move on to just the truth about what happened during colonisation, because it's pretty awful, and how it continues to impact today. But also then we move into a reflective place where people get to reflect on what they've learned in relation to their jobs and how it's changed their practice. And the whole theme through all of it, of course, is underpinned by Aboriginal self-determination, that strengths-based solution-focused approach in action, in conversations, but also in case noting. You know, how do we document in this self-determined, strengths-based, solution-focused way, because documentation is so important. Now on top of that, through the reflections, you know, we have those 4 sessions, but then we keep the conversations alive in between. We'll have statewide drop-in sessions where people might have said, hey, the Northern Territory emergency response sounds really interesting, would like to know more. We can go, great. We will do a drop-in session across the state and talk about that. Or the power of language, and we'll do a drop-in session around that. Some people have wanted to know, sorry, just got an echo too, how to write their own acknowledgement of country. So I think that's really powerful. You know, you've been welcomed to this country now. How do you want to acknowledge that welcome? You know, you've been welcomed to our home. When you go to someone's home and they've welcomed you over, how do you acknowledge that when you get to the front door? You know, it's that call and response. So how do we write something from the heart? So we'll go through sessions like that, but it really is giving people equipment and tools and insight, giving them a place to be vulnerable and a place where they're actually allowed to get it wrong, because everything that's said wrong in our training isn't wrong. It's just an opportunity to learn and grow, and for everyone in that room to learn from the same thing that's being said. So yeah, we provide a safe place for people to want to learn and grow, and I think, you know, it's working. We're seeing some change.
Thanks. Eddie, any final thoughts from you?
I think they covered it all. I guess for people, I think it's important to understand your own journey. Like, what's your individual journey? What is, you know, what's shaped your life? You know, where have you learned, I guess, some of the things you've learned? I mean, sometimes people come and ask me, like when I run cultural awareness training or cultural safety training, they'll often ask me, you know, I find it hard to have a conversation with an Aboriginal person. I think, like, why? So I actually asked that question, like, why do you feel like that? So I don't know, I just feel like that I'll be racist, or I'll upset them, or I'll offend them in some way. And I often think, like, so where did you learn that? You've learned that from somewhere. You know, is it when you were a child, in school? Was it high school? Was it in a sporting club? Was it, you know, obviously social media plays a massive role in people's lives these days and shaping how people think. You know, is it social media that's played a role? You know, I mean, how do you feel when you speak to a Greek person or an Irishman or somebody from Europe? You know, oh no, yeah, they'll feel okay about that. I said, well, what about when you talk to me? I said, no, you're all right. We can talk to you. Thinking, well, I'm no different from any other Aboriginal person. So there's this unconscious bias that you have, or this belief that you have that you need to unlearn. It's almost like you need to decolonize your mind and relearn. Like, you know, it's important to be curious. Get out, put yourself out there, you know, in and amongst Aboriginal people. Don't sit back in your room or your workplace and Google everything about an Aboriginal person or listen to Sky News. Get out there and actually get out there and go and visit Aboriginal organisations. Go out there and have a chat, have a yarn, learn a little bit about what these different organisations do. Build partnerships. Now, your organisation, depending on what it does, could look at building relationships, you know, strong working relationships, formal relationships with Aboriginal organisations and Aboriginal community-controlled organisations. So I think it's important we all work together, because sometimes we're all in the same game, trying to do the same thing. So it's important that we start to do those things and make them meaningful and make them authentic. I think that's important when you start to look at this space. But again, it's about giving yourself time. It's about the journey. It's not about the destination. So it's important that you understand that. And yes, you will get things wrong. You will muck up. And it's okay to make mistakes. You know, I've made mistakes as an Aboriginal man in some of the places I've worked in remote Australia. You know, and I got told off by the traditional owners because I nearly walked into a sacred site once when I was working in Central Australia. So we all make mistakes, but I think the important thing is to always seek clarity. You know, don't be afraid to ask for help. because I guess as Aboriginal people understand like you don't know everything. So, you know, it's important that, yes, if you make a mistake, don't do it again. I certainly didn't walk back into that same space, let me tell you. So that's important to do. So, yeah, be open to, you know, learning and educating, and just look at all different forms. I mean, you can go to plays, you can attend like NAIDOC events, Reconciliation Week, you can go to those things, lots of different shows you can watch. You can watch black comedy. There's a show called Black Comedy. We as Aboriginal people love taking the mickey out of ourselves. So if you watch that, after watching black comedy, you should feel culturally safe. So based on that. So yeah, just look at the different resources you can do, and just learn all different forms and all different ways. And yeah, hopefully it helps you to build those relationships and helps to educate you and brings you closer to you know, to learn a little bit about us and how we can all, you know, work together.
Oh, thanks, Eddie. And look, just again, really want to thank all three of you. Not only have we done this wonderful webinar together today, but you've been so generous with your time in the weeks leading up to this, to talk about some of this stuff, and it's just been so incredibly insightful, and I've learned so much. But you've been, yeah, very, very giving of your time, so thank you again. And thank you for listening, and that's the end of the extended Q&A. See you later.